going to talk about your film.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your film.
Yeah, I'm the executive producer of the Mink Catcher, which is a short film. We shot here in Dallas. It's a story about Dallas women, and it takes place in November of 1980 on the night where a group of women have gathered to find out who shot JR, which is when that episode of Dallas, the series. So we can't get more Dallas than this film.
No, not at all.
It's about Dallas in every way, and it was actually directed by Samantha Buck, who is a amazing director. She's a Peabody Award winner for a documentary called Best Kept Secret that she did year before last, and she grew up in Dallas. Her mother was a housewife, which is like many of the women in the short film, that decided she kind of wanted to do something different and bigger with her life and moved to DC and became a lobbyist and is currently a lobbyist there today.
No shortage of work for that in DC.
No shortage of work for that. So
cool. Well, you talk about Dallas. Who shot JR? And it seems to be, it's like you have the Kennedy assassination, and then who shot JR is like the two most significant events.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting that it would revolve around that particular story. But now I know you can't give the plot away or anything, but a little bit about the adventure of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, the Kennedy assassination, this movie takes place in 1980, which coincides with that episode and the release of Dallas, but it also is just sort of a really pivotal time in the history of Dallas and a time frame that was pivotal for Dallas women. So, with the 60s, you have sort of the Dallas housewife and the traditional Southern roles for women and sort of the expectations of being that. Then you have the 60s and 70s where opportunities start to open up. And then the 80s where political opportunities start to open up for women. And so the two characters in this are a journalist and then the mayor's wife. And the journalist is covering society and kind of wants to be a part of this. And the mayor's wife is society and desperately wants to kind of escape the sort of pressures of the role that she finds herself in. So they kind of collide at this party and are intrigued by each other and sort of learn more about each other as the night goes on.
Kind of because they're very different.
They're very different, and what one wants desperately, the other wants desperately to escape. And so I think it showcases a lot of what is complex about women and what women struggled with at that time, which is, now you're filled with choices. What you could be is anything, and at that time, that wasn't the case.
Okay. How did you come to this project?
That is a great question. It has a little bit of a nerdy element to it.
Okay, that's what we like.
We're going to bring nerds in. So I work full-time for an animation studio called Real Effects, which is a local studio here. And we were working on a movie called Free Birds back in 2013. And our producer was a live-action guy named Scott Mosier. And Scott Mosier is well-known for producing Clerks and Chasing Amy and Mallrats and his podcast with Kevin Smith. So definitely a large following of fans in that. And Scott said, you have to meet these girls. Because he does a lot of documentary work, which I didn't know about Scott at the time. And they had worked on a documentary called Best Kept Secret, which Samantha directed. And the group of girls, Samantha, our producer, Marie, and other producer, Daniela, all went to Columbia Film School together. So Scott had executive produced their documentary. It was about autism in urban areas and sort of what happens to kids who can no longer be taken care of by the public school system. And they said, well, we're doing this movie about Dallas. We're doing a feature, but we want to do a short film first. And we've never filmed in Dallas. And Scott said, well, you guys need to all meet. And that's how we all connected. And we've been really close friends ever since. And they're going to be here for the film festival. So I'm really excited.
Very nice. It's kind of an interesting story about how you get put together with someone who, like Kevin, started out being an independent filmmaker and getting thrown into it.
And absolutely. And that is how, Scott sees filmmaking. His genesis was making films, and, they didn't have the money or the resources to necessarily do the big budget, so he got all his friends involved. And I think he knew that I was interested in, doing other types of film, and sort of put us all together. And we had no idea if we'd all connect and click, but it really worked. I'm kind of the Texas home base, and they're all in New York. And so we've been, getting together as much as possible.
Now, do you guys, you have your own unique skill set?
We do. So we've got Samantha's our director and co-writer. Marie is the producer and co-writer. Then Daniela is also a producer, and I'm executive producer. And so we basically just divide and conquer. I think that's really important, and I think they were excited to find something that we hope grows and grows in Dallas, which is the film community here, and getting in touch with the Film Commission and local partners like Buffalo Casting and MPS that we wanted them to get to know, because our goal is to shoot the feature here late next year or early the year following, and so we also wanted to establish a community for the film here and get, because as they're not local residents, I'm kind of the ambassador, the Dallas ambassador for the project.
Taking them to all the cool
Jan
spots.
did grow up here, so it's also like a bit coming home from her, but she was younger when she left.
What is the one thing that you hope that people take away, not only from this, but when you guys shoot the feature next year?
Yeah, so I think from this particularly, it's really understanding the complexity of women, and a lot of people would say, oh, well, it's this film about society women that can be easily dismissed as having, a specific role or a limited role and limited capabilities. And I think what this shows is that there's always more, beneath the surface, or beneath the mink coat in this case. And then for the feature as a whole, I think it follows actually 3 women instead of 2, and some of the characters overlap. But it really dives into this similar things, which is women in a society where, certain things aren't expected from them, and certain things are struggling with their roles and how to be who they really are, which I think is always resonates in any situation.
Well, and I don't think whether it's 1980 or 2016, I mean, it's still the same.
It's still the same, and I think it crosses sort of, gender barriers, ethnic barriers. All of the women, there were many different issues that people were struggling at that time.
Were they, the ones that are not from Texas, were they still kind of amazed at, I don't want to say backwards about Texas, but still looking at it very differently compared to New York? This is still very much a man's world.
Well, and I think they were, and I think that what Dallas has always been, known for is this sort of, it is a caricature of the city, because there's strong personality and strong fashion, and these big bold industries like oil and gas, and it creates this sort of Death Star attraction to people, because it's very unusual to a lot of people outside of the city. But within our group, we've got people from very diverse backgrounds. Our producer is German, grew up in Germany, and different religious backgrounds, and conservatism and more liberalism, and we all bring sort of different things to the film in that way. And I think that shows in the characters and the women that we're trying to portray.
Now, you keep throwing out there the complexities of women. That sounds like to me that for men will never get you. Just another way of saying that.
I think what it means is to fully understand, a lot of women at that time, the men assumed there was only a certain amount to understand.
Right.
That was what the expectation was. And I think it's saying, not that women can't be understood, but that they need to be. And so I think it just sort of shines a light on, and you've seen this in other great shows like Mad Men, where, Betty Draper went from being sort of a housewife at the very beginning to, her dream of being a psychologist and really growing. And that was really only because she finally took on a role that she knew she could always do, but it just wasn't something that was expected of her.
Is the audience strictly just for women, or is it?
Absolutely not. I think everyone will recognize something. I definitely recognize, things about my mom and, women of her group. I think men will understand. There are men in the movie as well. It's not just all women.
Right.
And I think everyone will recognize, because so many of us, at least that are adults, remember the days of Dallas, the TV show, what that was like and what it created in Dallas, the city. Sort of, does art imitate life or the reverse? Yeah.
Especially in the 80s.
Especially in the 80s. And that was some of the most fun, I think, fun things we got to do were the wardrobe. We sourced vintage outfits from all sorts of Dallas ladies.
Oh, wow.
We went full authentic 80s. We have authentic furs from the 80s, everything. We had a great costume designer, Nell Broder, who did Ain't Them Body Safe. And we really really had a lot of fun with it. We filmed on Swiss Avenue in a house that, was appropriate for that time period, and didn't even have to do much redecorating to get it to look the way we needed it to. So we had.
Well, it sounds like to me that Dallas is almost like your extra character in the background.
It is. It's part of our story, and it is our story, and it's a city that has, like you said, this history where it's identified with these really specific things. But I think the same with the women. The feature especially will elaborate on that Dallas is more complex than it looks.
Oh yeah.
And I think as someone who's lived here, and for those of us who have lived here a long time, you know that, but you're constantly trying to explain it because there's been this perception for such a long time that it's just these things.
I can say that firsthand. I'm originally from Chicago, and this whole place it's a lot more of a melting pot than I think people give Texas credit for.
Absolutely.
Because you have transplants from different places, and you don't have the strictly Texas people anymore, and they evolve too.
They evolve, and I think one thing that is great with all of these films, and we're not the only film in the festival that's made in Dallas, but it's great to have a growing amount of filmmakers here that want to make films here, not just in Texas, but in Dallas as a city. I mean, if we succeed or if they succeed, we all kind of succeed as a film community. And as someone that works in film outside of this film, but in a different kind of film in the city, it's also, it's hugely important that we're putting Dallas in the forefront and not shooting movies elsewhere that are meant to be shot here.
Right.
Because then that's how no one gets to know Dallas. We want people to get to know the sort of authentic version.
Right. I mean, you can have certain areas in the background of a TV show, and it might be LA, like if you're shooting on a freeway, but if you're going to set your place in Dallas, just like with New York, I mean, I think that it's better that you have to shoot it there.
Absolutely. And, there's so many people here that we were involved with that support a ton of films that are, eager to help make things like this happen.
Right.
So.
All right, so this is the ending question we always do at That Nerd Show. I know, this is...
Glad I did my New York crossword stuff. I feel like I should stretch or something.
I know, right? No, it's no hardcore trivia or anything. If you could write, direct, produce, or star, would you do Star Wars or Star Trek? Or both?
Can I answer differently for each one?
If you say both, that's fine, and you can answer differently for both.
I would want to star in Star Wars and maybe direct Star Trek.
Star Trek?
Yes. I feel like I could bring something to Star Trek in the directorial sense. But in Star Wars, I feel like I just enjoy sort of something about the costume seems really fun in Star Wars. I feel like I could do well in a stormtrooper outfit. I feel like I could fit in with this.
Well, if Daniel Craig can.
Yes, and I liked what Daisy Ridley had going on. I liked all of what she had going on, so I feel like I could be an extra in that sense and maybe bring something to that too.
Nice. But if you directed Star Trek, not as much lens flare, right?
No lens flare. I feel like they've just gone, everyone's just gone crazy. But no, I think either one would be great to be, a part of. I'm an old Star Trek fan. William Shatner used to show horses, believe it or not, and I used to show the same kind of horses. So I've been
nice.
I have a loose, long-term connection to the Trek world.
Nice. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so nice
good
to
luck
meet
with
you.
the short.
Thanks. We're excited.